Please.
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 Please. Hello and welcome to Cinema Double Shot. I am Wallace McKelvey, a journalist and filmmaker, and today I'm here with my partner Josh Dorsheimer.
Hello. I am Josh Dorsheimer, Wallace McKelvey's partner. Back by unpopular demand.
Aww. Well, actually, a friend of ours was like, "Where's Josh? I haven't seen him on your podcast for a while."
Well, I'll get this out of the way right at the beginning instead of at the end. I am currently in a production of Emmet Otter's Jug Band Christmas at Open Stage, and it is showing until December 23rd. I am playing Mayor Fox, and I'm very excited because I'm singing Paul Williams music. So come join us for the holidays. There we go.
And y'all, at the time that we're recording this, which is actually Thanksgiving morning.
Happy Thanksgiving, pilgrims! Belated
Thanksgiving to all of you, because this episode definitely won't be up for another day or two. But you just had your opening weekend of Emmet Otter's Jug Band Christmas.
I did.
And it was magical.
Aw.
Seriously. It is such a... As I said... to my friends, getting them to come out to Open Stage, it is a blast of pure joy.
Aww.
And it's such a warm and friendly. It's inspired by Jim Henson.
Yes,
Jim Henson, the movie, the TV movie special from the 70s.
Yeah.
But it adds a couple extra songs. It fleshes out some of the side characters, and it leaves you with a happy, warm feeling without being saccharine.
No, well, half of the songs are dirges, so so I would not call it saccharine at all.
It definitely, this show and the TV special it's based on is it's modeled after O. Henry.
Yeah, The Gift of the Magi.
The Gift of the Magi and other stories that he did back in the 1800s at the height of the, kind of the original Gilded Age.
Yes.
When lots of people were living in poverty and struggling. So in some sense, I think it's a good time to bring it back.
Oh, heck yeah. Well, Stuart has been calling it a warm hug on stage, and he said we need it now.
A warm hug about poverty.
A warm hug about poverty, but finding love in your community, which is why the show is so important right now. It's been a lot of fun, and we don't use actual Muppets, but I can confirm that every single person on stage is in fact a Muppet.
I mean, you're definitely a Muppet.
Thank you. I've always wanted to be a Muppet ever since I was a child. So,
and I think TJ is definitely a Muppet.
Oh yeah, TJ is a Muppet. Chris has got the Ma Otter voice down. She is a Muppet. We are all Muppets. And
I'm not as familiar with the actor who actually plays Emmet Otter.
Oh, he's new. He's new to the area. Isaac. He's really, really good.
Isaac is full on Muppet.
Yes,
and especially with that hat that has the brim that goes up. I don't know how old Isaac is, but he looks like a little kid in that hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. He looks like a little otter.
Yes.
Yeah.
An otter.
Otter.
Yeah.
Otter.
Well, thank you for letting me hijack the beginning of the podcast for my advertisement. But that is to also answer the question, where have I been?
Where has Josh been? Josh has been in rehearsals.
I have been acting.
Which is kind of the tempo of our lives. Is we have these seasons, and fall is a season for a lot of creative stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I tend to do most of my filming in the spring and summer. Mm-hmm. And then in the fall, I'm planning the next wave of things.
Yes.
And that's where I'm at, is the planning. And this year has also been the film festival stuff.
Yes.
So I talked about this in the last episode with Paul Hood, my creative partner. But I've been to a bunch of I've been to two film festivals in the last 2 weekends.
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's been a blast of pure joy too. because you get to meet filmmakers from all over, some locals, but also some folks from around the globe. Like I got to meet one of the director of the film that's being submitted for the Best International Oscar from Israel. It's a film called The Sea, which it doesn't have wide distribution at the moment, but I recommend it as soon as it does. Once it becomes available, which the vagaries of our distribution system are such that this movie probably won't be available in the States until the middle of next year. Because oftentimes distributors wait for a movie to get an Oscar nomination before they distribute it, if it's in the foreign language, or if it doesn't have like a big recognizable American star. But The Sea is this really a warm bath of sorts of a film about a kid who wants to go to the sea. He's living in a Palestinian encampment in northern Israel. And even though he only lives a few miles from the sea, he has to get a permit and go through a bunch of these checkpoints. And a series of events take place where he doesn't get to go. And being a kid who's 8 or 9 years old, he decides just to go. And it sets off this chain of events that is simultaneously, they're really beautiful moments of human interaction that transcend religion and politics. But there's also the tension underneath of it where you're like, oh heck, this kid's in a lot of trouble. And it's a beautiful film, and the director is really this humble, kind of an embodiment of the kind of director that we'll probably be discussing on this episode a great deal. Ozu. Very... It more so that film reminded me of Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves. More than an Ozu film. But, it's cut from a similar kind of humanist cloth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, important question before we get going. Does this mean that it will be nominated for a Wally film in 2025 or in 2026? Because you saw it in 2025, but it didn't get a wide distribution until hopefully 2026.
We shall see.
All right. I presented you with your own paradox.
No matter what I do, our friend Kevin Knox, who is a film nerd and runs HMAC, is going to disagree with it. But yeah, so because of the vagaries of our own schedules, we haven't gotten to sit down to talk about this big thing that we did in early September.
Oh, and what was that?
We went to Japan.
We did?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm pretending to be the audience.
So, yeah, Josh and I, this has been a trip for me that I've been wanting to do for the better part of a decade. I came very close to going to Japan in 2020. I was starting to plan it. I hadn't bought tickets or anything yet, but I was starting to think about, what would be a good time to go? If I go, I want to do this, 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 and this. And then guess what happened?
I don't know.
COVID.
Oh, yeah.
COVID happened in 2020.
That little thing.
Yeah. So then I was like, all right, I'm not going to Japan this year. And then, one thing comes after another. I started working on this feature film. I got a new job. Life happens. We started dating. I know. And then, but this year we made it a commitment at the beginning of the year. We actually scheduled out the big landmark dates for the year ahead. Yeah. And we did it.
I got grandfathered in, and I'm very happy.
So Josh and I, we spent a week in Kyoto, almost a week, not quite a full week, and then almost a week in Tokyo, and it was everything I imagined it would be, and more. I don't know. What did you think about actually going to Japan?
Oh, I thought it was enchanting. Not to sound queer.
A land of enchantment. Huh?
That is the word that when people are like, "Oh, how did you find Japan?" I said I found it enchanting. But that is probably the best word I can think of, despite the fact that it's a little theatrical. but because there's like it's charming. It was. I know that we only stayed there for 2 weeks, but it felt like a warm hug of a place. And on top of that, there's just something very spiritual about it too. I said haunted, but not in like the scary, like ooh. So that's where I come up with enchanting, because when you think of a happy haunting, anyway. So that's my word.
Well, especially in Kyoto, which I shared this story with a couple people already, but Kyoto was largely preserved, largely saved from the wreckage of World War II, because one of our top military commanders had actually spent time in Kyoto before the war, and was like, when they started picking out which places they were going to firebomb, and ultimately which places they were going to drop the first atomic bombs. Kyoto, which was the historic capital of Japan during the 1800s and prior, which had all these beautiful architecture, a beautiful kind of cultural environment there. So much art sprang forth from Kyoto, had lots of green spaces. Was really a beautifully well designed city. Was preserved from the worst of the bombings in World War II, and that's why today it is a city where like you walk a block or two and you'll run into a temple.
Yeah.
There's so much still there, and it still has kind of the culture of old Japan that largely is preserved in movies.
Yeah.
Like Akira Kurosawa, a lot of, some of his movies, like that culture that you're seeing depicted there, that was mostly, some of it was filmed on like sound stages. Kyoto still has echoes of that in the city itself, whereas you go to Tokyo is a beautiful city, has its own culture, but is different.
Yeah, it's modern.
It's modern. Yeah. Most of the buildings in Tokyo they were leveled during the fire bombings after Pearl Harbor and the successive bombings over the course of World War II. And because of that, the city, largely, it was rebuilt in concrete and steel. And so it has a different flavor to it. There still are some remnants here and there. Like there are a few neighborhoods that still have some of that pre-World War II atmosphere to them, but it's few and far between.
Yeah.
And in many ways, like Tokyo became a new city after World War II. And that is, some of that atmosphere is depicted in the films of my favorite director, Yasujiro Ozu. He actually captured on film the rebirth of Japan as a new culture, as new values kind of replaced some of the old and became integrated into the society. And so you watch a film like Late Autumn or Tokyo Twilight, or his most famous Tokyo Story, you see the burgeoning big city culture kind of emerging out of the fallout of World War II.
Yeah. It's kind of like historical documentation through cinema. Or as you like to say, I know when you talk about making movies in your areas, Harrisburg, and with friends, you are like, it's like a time capsule. You are telling a history of something that happened, maybe not necessarily in your life, but it's a snapshot of your life. And he kind of captured Tokyo through various snapshots, sort of, but through telling different stories. And it is very fascinating to watch.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite parts of our trip to Japan?
Well, a lot of my favorite stuff was in Kyoto. I really liked Tokyo, but I fell in love with Kyoto because I thought it was just charming. And I I really liked going to the various temples. There was just a reverence and moments to be quiet, which I appreciated. I really liked, despite the fact that it was so hot and it took so long, Wallace and I hiked to the top of Mount Inari, which was pretty cool. What was it, like a 3-hour long hike?
Yeah, it actually wasn't as long as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Although, in the moment while you're hiking up this mountain
In 90-degree weather.
and Mount Inari is like, if you have seen any kind of travelogues about Japan, you might recognize it because it has all the way up the mountain path. You've got these sections that are these like red orange gates that you walk underneath up the mountain, and it is there's a big temple at the base of the mountain, and then you go up, and along the way there are all these cemeteries where various
temple, yeah,
and little shrines as well,
with foxes. So many foxes. I loved it. Well, one of my favorites, I don't even know what part of the mountain we were on, but we got to this point and we just snuck off into this little alcove, and there was a little waterfall, and it was just dark and green, and there were just foxes everywhere with like coins and bells, and it was just this little dark green foresty alcove with water and foxes, and I was just like, that's the image that sticks in my head from when we went up that mountain. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the top was pretty neat too. We met people from Pennsylvania, which was funny. So that was one of my favorite things. I liked all the town with the lanterns. When we went to have dinner, that was cool. Mm-hmm. That was very magical. And then I guess my other big thing that I will mention was also in Kyoto. I really enjoyed going to Tohai Studios, which is where they film, well, not anymore because they just ended the show, but they have backlots where they film the Japanese version, so other folks will know this as the Power Rangers, but over in Japan it is called Super Sentai, and it is where they filmed. And it was just cool. It was like Universal Studios, but more chill, and also with more like kaiju and with Power Rangers.
And when we were there, they were setting up for one of their films. I'm not sure what they were filming because they do a bunch of different like TV shows and movies there on their backlots, but they had part of Toei Studios like cordoned off, and we could see them. They were setting up a giant green screen.
Yeah,
and they clearly had like art directors and folks like back behind the wall, setting up part of their old village. So I'm pretty sure they were doing some kind of samurai TV show back there.
I think so too. And the very kind security guard who was just like, oh no. Don't, not like, don't come back. He was just like, oh no, not here. We're like, okay, cool. Very, very, very kind people, even the cops.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. You don't want to overstate it because there are all kinds of people everywhere you go. But one aspect of Japanese culture that I find fascinating and charming is the kind of the sense that you're all in it together.
Yeah.
And everyone has a responsibility as part of the social contract.
Yeah.
Like there's a stronger social contract in Japan just among normal people that in America we don't quite have that. It's gotten eroded over time. In some ways for good, but in some other ways maybe not for good. But everyone kind of takes responsibility for each other, and there's an expectation that you, to borrow a phrase from psychology, there are strong boundaries.
Yes.
And
rules.
And rules, yeah.
I was like, one of my favorite things actually about Japan. But I will let you continue. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and like sumimasen.
Yeah, well,
is the most flexible word in the Japanese language, because depending on how you use it, it can mean multiple things. You know, it could mean like pardon me. It could be a genuine apology. Mm-hmm. It could also be a kind, almost like a passive aggressive. You are falling out of line. You need to respect my boundary. Sumimasen. Depending on how you say it, can mean several things.
Yes.
And do you want to share the experience we had with in the tea ceremony?
I will, but you want to explain what the tea ceremony is first, because that was something that I was not familiar with. That you were like, oh, we're gonna do this thing, and I was really excited.
Well, I'm mostly familiar. Most of Japanese culture, insofar as I know about it, am knowledgeable. It's because of cinema. It's because I've watched so many films. I think I started watching Japanese cinema in like middle school, and I fell in love, like most people. The first movies I saw were Akira Kurosawa, samurai films, mm-hmm. And then I kind of built on that from there, and I fell into Ozu, and I fell in love with Ozu's world. I know I'm going to get parts of this wrong. So if you want to learn more about the tea ceremony, please Google it. Don't base it on what I'm about to tell you.
You're foreshadowing.
But the tea ceremony is really it isn't just a social thing. Part of it is whenever you bring people together, you host them. And you have this, it's like an art form. It's not just the way that, for example, on the podcast, I share coffee or tea with whoever I'm talking with.
Should be drinking matcha right now.
That's true. We didn't think about that.
We didn't think about that anyway. Sorry.
But in everyday life, we break bread, we share coffee. It's not like that. There, like many other aspects of Japanese culture, there's a ceremony. It is a ceremony. There's a ceremonial aspect to it, an artistic aspect to it. Even you could say a spiritual aspect to the tea ceremony. You go through a series of steps as hosts, and the way that you express your hospitality and your gratitude toward your guests is in how well number one, you make them feel comfortable, but also going through the steps of the ceremony. Mm-hmm. And you are every kind of down to the way that you stir the matcha into the water and you make the bubbles foam. Like there's a technique. Yes. Do you want to say that a little louder?
Chaka 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 zigzag was what we learned.
Every aspect of it has a meaning, and there's a precise way to do it, and there's also like different variants depending on where in Japan you go, different kind of mores, different processes by which you do the tea ceremony, but all of it is built on an idea of hospitality, making your guests welcome, and showing them how much you care about them being there with you. It can be it is quite formal, mm-hmm. But buried beneath all those formalities is a love for the people that you're with.
And warmth. It was fun.
Yeah. And I imagine, depending on like what level of society you're in and who you're with, I'm sure there's more complexity to it than I can possibly talk about. Yeah. Because in some ways you're also showing off too.
Yeah.
You have a specific tea room set aside with specific artwork on the walls, and even down to like the quality of the tea that you're serving. Like, just like in our society, there are certain signifiers to show that you're wealthy, you're privileged, whatever. There's aspects of that in it too, I'm sure, that to an outsider goes whoop over our heads. So I'm bringing my humility to bear on this because I'm not an expert.
That's all right. I couldn't say any of that. I just know that it was cool. It was fun. It was warm. I liked that there were rules. Again, that was the part that made me really kind of, because when you get there, you have to do things a specific way. You have to, down to putting your clothing on when you are dressing for tea. You have to do it in a certain order. It was really, I found that part, like, I just wanted to, I wanted to spend another week there so I could like learn the rules and be like, I can do this,
You were in your element.
I was. I really was.
There's a respect for rules. I mean, in some ways, that has become a cliche for a lot of Asian cultures.
Yeah.
But it's built on a truth as well.
Yeah, and I think it's very effective. I was like, I could live like this, It was. I won't get into we had manuals when we went into the apartment that Wallace was like, you can look at this because and I'm like, I will. But at the tea ceremony, there was you asked me to mention a couple of things. There's 2 parts to this because there was a wonderful lady back there who was explaining to all of the tourists how everything was supposed to go. With me, first of all, there was one point where I was getting my kimono on, and I did something out of order, but she was not annoyed with me. She actually said "sumimasen" to me, and I was like, "No, why are you apologizing to me?" No.
That's where "sumimasen" in that context was like, "Hey, you're doing it wrong."
Yes, but we had a nice laugh about it. I really liked her. However, there was another guy back there who was just not listening to anything that she was saying and was doing things totally wrong. And at one point, she very politely but very sternly just kept going, please, please, please.
Please, please. She wasn't even saying "sumimasen" anymore.
No, at this point, she was just saying "please" over and over again. And I just felt for her because I was just like, this. If this man is listening, I'm sorry, but you were not listening to her, so I'm going to say idiot. She's just trying to be so polite and trying to keep her composure while simultaneously saying please with desperation in her eyes. That was the highlight of the. No, I really liked. Okay, what was her name? Her nickname was Cola. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was like, you could call me Coca-Cola if you want. But who did our ceremony. She was very sweet and very patient with us as we were learning rules and how to do things, and took a picture of us and called us cute and all that jazz. It was actually, I believe she took our Christmas. She took our Christmas card photo.
Our Christmas card photo is from that experience now. Yeah,
and the woman who taught us the tea ceremony is the one who took the picture. So, thank you. She was very kind. I liked her.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about Kyoto. Is there anything else in Kyoto, or what were your highlights? Because I think I hit my major. Oh, and the Godzilla head.
Well, that was in Tokyo.
That was in Tokyo.
Yeah, that was in Tokyo.
But yes.
Well, there were so many, and so I can't possibly go through all of them. But I think the highlight of the entire trip was the day that we went to Ozu's grave.
Oh yes.
And that was we went to Tokyo by train from Kyoto, and then we took the train again. We took it back down toward the south to Kita-Kamakura, which is where Yasujiro Ozu, my favorite film director, is buried. Mm-hmm. And he's at this temple in the graveyard there, and very simple black stone. with a character that basically means nothingness written on it, which if you've seen very many Ozu films is kind of the perfect embodiment of his approach to the world, his approach to cinema. There's a kind of, I don't want to say simple. His movies aren't simple, but he takes kind of real human level emotions and turns them into high art. Yeah. There's an elegance to the way that he plots his films, to the performances that he elicited from his stock company of actors. And he's well known for what a lot of film scholars describe as pillow shots. So like in between scenes of his film, he would take a moment and show what was going on around those bits of dialogue. So he might open on a scene of a harbor, and he'll match cut a lighthouse with a bottle of soju in the next room in the next scene that he's going to, or he'll interrupt a scene between a father and a daughter with a shot of a beautifully framed shot of a vase in that room situated on the tatami mat, and those shots they can appear to be throwaway shots, but they're not. They're there to let the plot rest and have you think about what just happened. Mm-hmm. And he very much he approached filmmaking his work with a sense of real humanism, like respect for the characters, their complexities. He didn't stress his points the way that a lot of American melodrama did. He just kind of let them bubble up from the surface, which is a neat trick, because simultaneously it appears like he's doing nothing, and yet you absorb the complexities of these characters and their relationships.
It's very intentional.
It is. Every shot has meaning in his film. Every kind of exchange of dialogue. There's the surface level of what's going on, but cumulatively, as you move through his films, you get a deeper picture of who these people are. And I find that really beautiful. I also find it beautiful, the humility with which Ozu approached his work, because he was, in my mind, a grandmaster of film. Mm. Yet, in his own writings, he described himself in one of his journals, he described himself as like a maker of tofu.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. he every film, he was just making the best film that he could. But he didn't have any grandiose, imaginings of himself. I'm sure that he would be surprised that people make the pilgrimage to his grave.
Including major directors. We went to the film history museum very close to where his grave was. And there's photos of Jim Jarmusch there. There were
Wim Wenders.
Famously. They have a whole wall dedicated to directors who had things to say about Ozu, and then also made the pilgrimage out to visit Ozu. Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
And when we got there, the part of the pilgrimage is everyone brings some alcohol with them, and they leave it, because famously Ozu, he would when he went off to write a new film with his frequent collaborator Kogo Noda, they would just go late into the night drinking whiskey, drinking drinking lots and lots of liquor.
Plum sake.
And over the course of like, a couple weeks of getting shit-faced, at the end of it, they would have a new script and a new shot list, and then they would take it back and they'd start working on it. They'd start filming it. And so I brought plum sake to leave on his grave, and I situated it like amongst probably 24 other bottles.
It was not insane, because I think it's well deserved, but it was very surprising just to see how much love for somebody who has nothing written on his tombstone. It was really magical to see how many folks brought their respects to nothing.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I saw it too. Is like I'm paying my respects to someone I respect and admire. Mm-hmm. And I did a little bit of research before we went, and I found out that the noodle shop where Ozu, because Ozu lived in that small town toward the end of his life.
It's a very cute small town, by the way.
It is.
Train yards, and
it's right on the train line that goes down toward one of the beach towns south of Tokyo. And I found out, he went to this one particular noodle shop that was by the train station. And the place is still open, although it's doubtlessly changed ownership since then. And we stopped there for lunch, and we had this really beautiful interaction with the folks who run that noodle shop today. All of them older folks, like definitely over 60 years old, running this noodle shop. And I had a little conversation, in kind of broken English and Japanese. Like, I knew just enough Japanese to be able to ask some, to have to start a conversation and ask a question. And she knew just enough English to be able to like paper over the difference in our language. And she shared with me, oh yeah, I've heard about Ozu. Yeah, he came into the shop, and when I asked her, well, did you ever get to meet him? And she was like, oh no. And then we had this, because we had, we had a really lovely lunch there. And in America, when we get, for example, shrimp, we tend not to eat the tail, right?
Yes.
Like we remove the tail and set it aside, and that's what I did. And toward the end of our lunch, she came over to clear our plates, and she noticed that I had set aside the shrimp tail and hadn't eaten it. And so, kind of with her hand, she like made a chomp motion at me.
She also clacked her teeth together, which made me she went. That cracked me up.
So like, because she didn't understand why I didn't eat the shrimp tail, because it is edible and there are nutrients in it. Mm-hmm. And it took me like a moment to catch up with what she was telling me to do, and I finally I took the shrimp tail and I ate it.
Crunch.
But that little exchange with the woman at the noodle shop, that is a very Ozu kind of like interaction.
Yes.
He will, in many of his films, he will slow down the film and show those little human grace notes. And it's one of the things I love about Ozu. And getting to live in that world for a while was really beautiful and meaningful to me.
It was a really, really, really cool visit and a really cool day. And similarly, if we've got time for it, another small anecdote involving a cemetery was also straight out of an Ozu movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
When we were in Tokyo, what was that? What cemetery was that?
Well, I wrote some notes, thankfully.
Yes. It's the biggest.
It's Toma Cemetery
in
Japan, in Tokyo.
The biggest cemetery in Tokyo. Mm-hmm. We originally went. Well, we went for two reasons, because both Wallace and I have somebody that we admire that was buried in that cemetery. I didn't have a clue to where, so I wanted to visit Machiko Soga, who is a character actress who a lot of folks in America will know because she was the Japanese actress who played Witch Bandora, who became the character Rita Repulsa in Power Rangers. Crazy, crazy lady. Didn't know where she was buried. One of my favorite moments from Japan was when we went into the cemetery archives. None of them spoke English, which was fine. We had the translator app, and we were asking, hey, do you know where she's buried? We'd like to. And the lady came back with her cell phone with a picture of Witch Pandora from Super Sentai, and she was like, actress! And I was like, yes, actress! Unfortunately, they had no record of where she was buried. I feel like probably because her family didn't want her to be flooded with 50 million fanboys of a space alien show. But, I thought about her while we were there. But also buried in that cemetery, would you like to tell the second part of this story?
Well, I mentioned him just now, but Ozu's longtime collaborator, Kogo Noda, who co-wrote most of Ozu's movies past basically every one of them after about 1940. He co-wrote, and I wanted to pay respects to him as well. Yeah, because that was an essential collaborator, and I knew roughly that his grave was somewhere in the cemetery, and I was able to kind of triangulate based on information about where he might be. Funny enough, though, part of this is because of the language barrier. We were able to narrow it down to two different family plots, and we don't know for sure. I don't know with absolute certainty that we found Kogo Noda's actual grave, because they're family headstones and there are lots of different names. Yeah. And, but I'm pretty sure we found the right one. And I much like I did with Ozu, I came there, I cleared away the grave a little bit because it had been overgrown, and I left a bottle for him as well, and, wished him well, and, moved on with life. Now, it is almost, it is like a comical interlude from an Ozu film. Yeah, the fact that we don't know for certain that we actually saw the right grave, and that we left the bottle of sake at the right grave. But
the intention was there.
But the intention is there, and the respect is there. And, I tend to believe that, headstones and cemeteries, they're not really for the dead. They're for the living. They're for us. And in that sense, it's meaningful, even if we didn't leave the bottle of sake on the right grave. Yeah. I kind of think that would make a really charming plot for a film.
Write it down. In the next Wally film.
To leave your offering for the dead on the wrong grave is very much an Ozu thing.
Your ultimate Ozu tribute. That'll be... I'm waiting for it. I will. And if you want somebody to play a small part in it, I know a guy. Was there anything else from the trip you wanted to highlight?
Well,
because we've highlighted a lot of stuff, but I don't know.
I mean, we could go on for days and days. But do we want to transition into talking about some of our favorite Japanese films?
I think since we just spent a good time talking about Ozu, if you want to hear more about our trip to Japan, just ask us. You won't be able to get us to shut up. It was wonderful.
Yeah. And similarly, because Josh came up with the idea, well, why don't we talk about some of our favorite movies? Yeah. I could easily rattle off, I could talk for days about my favorite Japanese filmmakers. The way I approached this assignment is I decided not to go for the big famous Japanese films, although some of these arguably are. I went for some of the more out of the way stuff because you can go anywhere on the internet and find lots of white guys talking about Hayao Miyazaki, Akira Kurosawa, like they're a dime a dozen. So I went with kind of stuff that's a little more out of the way, and stuff that like are my favorites.
Yeah, I did something very similar, but also I don't have quite the viewing history of Japanese films that you do. I'm a newbie. In fact, some of these films that I'm going to mention are ones that you introduced me to and have since become some of my favorites. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
you have learned me. But yeah, well,
let's get started.
Let's get started.
Much to do.
You.
All right. Well, I guess since we've already talked a lot about Ozu, and I think Ozu kind of looking over the list that I came up with, all of these directors share DNA with Ozu in one way or another. They were either inspired by him, or they were contemporaries working in the same genre as him. Or in one case, he actually wrote the script for this film for another director. But I'll start with an Ozu film, and it's not one of his more famous ones. Quite honestly, you can't go wrong watching any Ozu film. You could start with the most famous ones, like Tokyo Story or Late Spring. You could go with one of his later ones. I think there's a really interesting progression in his later films where he settled more deeply into himself. And so if you watch, you could start with An Autumn Afternoon and you're getting Ozu at his most Ozuiest.
That's the first one you showed to me.
And yeah, that was the one that I introduced you to.
Yeah.
My personal favorite is Late Autumn, which has a trio of old men who are trying to marry off a colleague who is recently deceased, trying to find a spouse for his wife and simultaneously his daughter. So there are so many farcical elements of it, and Late Autumn is kind of a self-knowing film. Ozu was preoccupied with movies about marriage and intergenerational conflict and all the stress over finding someone to marry off your kid to. And Late Autumn is like, in some ways, it's like a soft parody of himself. And he, speaks simultaneously like a winking nod to how silly all that is. And he depicts the three old men. Simultaneously, they're wise in some ways, but completely blinkered in other ways. And I love Late Autumn. It is again, I think it's his second to last film, and it is Ozu at his most Ozuiest. I also want to mention Good Morning, which is similarly, it's a very like comedic. It has lots of comedic grace notes, and Good Morning is set in the new suburbs of Tokyo, these kind of large tract housing developments that sprang up following World War II after so many neighborhoods were completely obliterated by the fire bombs. And in this, you've got kind of the rising middle class aspiring to new kind of consumer culture, and the protagonists are these kids who want nothing more than to have a TV, and their various kind of interactions with the adults in their lives. And it is funny, it's charming, it's poignant. Oh gosh, I could go on talking about Ozu all day.
Did you call me?
Did you call me? I don't want to spoil it,
no,
but
don't.
It's not really a spoiler, but there's a whole running gag involving flatulence in Good Morning. So this this film that is like a legitimately great film is also, it has lots of fart humor in it. Which I think again is like the most Ozu thing ever. Like he's dealing with all these big, weighty, like human issues, and in the middle of it, there's lots of fart jokes.
Fart jokes.
I love it. A Good Morning might be the most accessible film to like a Western audience because of that.
Yeah, it's a hoot, but also
it's a hoot and a heartwarmer.
A hooting heartwarmer.
So I just went on my. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
No,
but I just went off on Ozu. What's your first?
I
pick?
love listening to you talk about Ozu, and I love it when you show me new Ozu films. So you could never have to apologize for talking about Ozu. The first film I'm going to mention is actually probably my earliest recollection of like a legit Japanese film that I saw when I was a teenager, when I was too young to see it, and that is Takashi Miike's film Audition, which I have a hot take about that I was saving for the podcast. I haven't even talked to you about it. So I love Audition because it starts out almost like an Ozu film.
Yeah.
It is a widower, and he is trying to find a new partner, and he's got this sexist friend who's all like, oh, I have an idea. Why don't you hold an audition for your next, girlfriend-wife thing, which is kind of an Ozu kind of concept. It's about, families and marital things, but in true Josh fashion, as folks who may or may not have listened to the podcast before, I love a good horror film. It's the last 20 minutes of that film. Mm-hmm. It's not even, the bulk of the movie is almost like a romantic comedy drama. Mm-hmm. It is so strange with him meeting this woman, and she's a little weird, and she's like, you need to promise that you're going to love me if you're going to like sleep with me. It goes so hard. Yes. In the last 20 minutes of that movie, it turns into straight up horror movie. It is like Fatal Attraction, but on steroids. And I just love that it starts off as this like warm, like drama romance movie, and it just goes off the rails. And I'm not going to spoil it for folks who have seen Audition know how grotesque it gets at the end.
Yeah, it is. When that movie turns, it is astonishing.
It is a hard left turn. So, like, spoiler alert, I almost didn't want to talk about, but you cannot not talk about it, but I almost didn't want to talk about it.
Well, also, spoiler alert for a movie that came out in the late 90s.
1999, yeah. But, like, so, yeah, my hot take is that it's an Ozu movie if somebody came in and directed the ending of it, but who was a horror movie director. Like, that is my hot take on Audition. And it was probably the first major Japanese film that wasn't animated that I've seen. And because I was and still am a horror nerd, and when that came out, I was like, ooh, I'm not supposed to watch this one. So yeah, Audition.
I think the next one I'll talk about, kind of riffing off of that, is Cure. It is Kiyoshi Kurosawa's kind of like psychological horror film. Mm-hmm. And Kurosawa, no relation to Akira, I don't believe. But he has spoken very openly about being inspired by Ozu, which on its face sounds a little weird because Kiyoshi Kurosawa is best known for his horror films. Mm-hmm. And some of them can be quite gory. And very intense, but if you watch his movies, you understand where it comes from. And Cure is a film in which a detective is investigating what appear to be unconnected crimes in which a person will kill a random stranger with no memory of having done it and no apparent motive whatsoever. And it's a very atmospheric film. It's impossible to spoil. Yeah. You just have to go into it and just let it wash over you.
Liminal spaces.
Lots of liminal spaces.
Yeah.
In a sense, similar to like the pillow shots. Mm-hmm. You know, there are lots of moments where you're just kind of watching. You're watching people move through space, or you're watching just space, and then stuff happens.
Grotesque stuff.
Yeah, like surprising stuff.
Yeah.
And I love the way that Kurosawa, he treats violence in his films. You know, there definitely is an aesthetic, you know, to his films, but he's, you know, not quote unquote glorifying any of the violence.
Yeah.
It is there because it's part of the human condition. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've ever seen a director treat violence as realistically as Kurosawa does in Cure, but also in some of his other movies. Like he recently did interestingly an NFT film called Chime, which is only available online. It can be a little bit intimidating to try to track it down.
Mm-hmm.
We will watch it eventually.
All right.
I watched it without Josh.
I know, and I'm still salty about it because I wanted to see that one.
But Chime, similarly, is pitched in a similar register as Cure. And there's a moment of violence in that film that comes out of nowhere and yet feels very much like a natural consequence of what you've been seeing. And Kurosawa is actually a very flexible filmmaker. He works in a bunch of different genres. Mm-hmm. Another of my favorite films by him is something called Tokyo Sonata, which feels very much like an Ozu film. The basic premise is this salaryman, middle-class guy with a family to support. He loses his job, and he decides to pretend to still be working. He doesn't tell his family. He sets up his phone to make it look like he has calls from work coming in, and goes through this whole process of like pretending like he's still on the job. Meanwhile, the rest of his family is going through hardship too. Like his teenage son is debating entering the military, and this film was back in 2008 when Japan was actually an ally of ours in our war in Afghanistan and Iraq. So there's multiple layers of things happening in this film, and it is a beautiful kind of Ozuian family portrait.
I haven't seen that one, but now you're talking about it, it's gonna go on my Letterboxd list. I'm still getting into Kiyoshi Kurosawa. I've seen a good handful of his movies, but I need to get more learned.
Yeah.
Which includes Chime. I did like Cloud though.
Yeah.
Which was the other recent one that we just went and saw. Cool. Oh, it's me now, isn't it?
You now.
It's me now. So before we get started on this one, I think this is a good opportunity to bring up somebody who's not on either of our lists because it's somebody who we mutually really admire, and that's Hayao Miyazaki.
This is the part where white guys talk about Hayao Miyazaki.
Yeah, only for a second. I just, whenever I need warmth, or he's also like who I watch when I like get sick. I will put on. It's just it's beautiful. I love. It's hard to pick one of his films just because all of them are so. Spirited Away is probably my favorite, but do love Howl's Moving Castle, and anyway.
And even some, like, I just watched Porco Rosso for the first time.
Yeah, that was fun.
And that's another, like, it's a beautiful warm bath.
Yeah.
And some of his films have, like, very obvious political and social messaging to them, mm-hmm. but they're couched in fairy tales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His most recent
sometimes popular things are just good.
Yeah.
And Miyazaki is popular, like an integral piece of like nerd culture.
He's got stores
also
in
great.
Japan. Like literally, there are stores that are themed.
He has a theme park.
Yeah.
Which
like,
you need to sign up. We looked. You need to sign up for tickets like 6 months in advance.
It's crazy.
Fuck that. But we love Miyazaki.
Yes. I bring him up because I'm about to bring up another animated movie, though, which is a movie called Perfect Blue by Satoshi Kon. And I had never seen this film until Joe Bob Briggs showed it on the last drive-in. I don't even know if I would necessarily... It's scary, but it's not really a horror film. It's a thriller. I might even say it's got some noir elements in it. It is beautifully animated, first of all, and the idea is so interesting. It's a psychological horror. The main character, I believe her name is Mima. Yes, Mima, who is a pop star who is turning actress. And as she is like making this transition, she's facing like the hardships of what happened to women in film and just as an actress. And simultaneously, she's dealing with what she believes to be a stalker, who is like journaling about her life and talking about her intimate details. And she's having visions simultaneously. This stalker is murdering people. And she begins to have visions thinking, am I actually disassociating and killing people? And it's so trippy. It's so interesting. It's got little elements of the substance in it because it's not necessarily body horror, but more what it means to be a woman who is facing sexism in the industry. I'm not going to spoil it because the last like half hour of it is really intense. But it's beautifully animated. Unlike some of the other horror animated movies that I have seen, it does have a trigger warning. It does have some depictions of violence and SA toward women, but it is used for the plot and to say something. The main character is not an object. It's actually the opposite. There is something being said here through this and it's just gorgeously animated, great story, also scary. It's scary. Again, I wouldn't call it a horror. I would call it a psychological horror film. But if I were to pick my favorite animated Japanese film that is not a Miyazaki film, I would absolutely say Perfect Blue is in that space. So I love it.
Yeah, and riffing off that kind of a fantasy element, but an actual like live action film, my next pick is Afterlife.
Oh, I liked that one too.
Yeah, by Hirokazu Kore-eda. It's a high concept that's being introduced here. Basically, you're set in the literal afterlife in which people, after they die, they go to this dream factory, and part of the process of transitioning to the afterlife is you have to find the memory that is most meaningful to you, and then this dream factory helps you film a version of that like memory that you carry with you to the afterlife. And the only way that you get to the afterlife is you have to find that meaningful memory and have it filmed. And of course, it's a big ensemble cast, which is like right in my wheelhouse. And it deals with like some heavy stuff, but with lots of humor and grace notes, and it's a very warm bath film that is high concept fantasy, but also very human level drama. And I love it. And it's actually a film that I watched in the last year. This is many of the films I'm going to talk about.
We watched it together.
Yeah.
And it was, I agree. It was such a beautiful movie. I loved it.
And I can't recommend Kore-eda enough. If you watch Afterlife and you love it, he's done a great many films. Very few of them are as like genre oriented as this one is. Mm-hmm. But he famously, I believe he got an Oscar nomination for Shoplifters, which is a magnificent film, but it's also like basically every film he's ever done is worth seeking out. Like Still Walking, and he recently did a film actually in Korea, South Korea, called Monster, which is the basic premise is there's a school kid, and you're left kind of wondering, is this a potential school shooter that we're following or not? It's a very it's suspenseful, but also again human level drama. Yeah.
Is that a new one?
Yeah, from the last couple of years.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. But I mean, I saw Afterlife, but now I'm intrigued by Monster.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, going along, I'm actually doing the thing that you do now, where I'm taking themes from something. Going along the filmmaking aspect of this, I'm going to talk about a movie that I also just saw very, very recently. That has since become one of my very favorite films, and it is called One Cut of the Dead, and it is by Shinichirou Ueda, and I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like I have. All right, spoiler alert! If you don't want to know anything about this movie, fast forward like a minute or two, because I need to talk about why this movie is so brilliant. It starts off like a horror movie, like a zombie horror movie, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And it's gory and it's fun, and then it ends, and you're like, what's going on? The movie only has been like maybe 50 minutes. What's going on?
Yeah.
And it takes a break, and you realize that this is a company of horror filmmakers who are making a movie in one take. And it shows, because the movie itself looks like, when you watch it first, I'm like, oh, this is cool. The zombie movie is done in one continuous take.
Yeah.
This is really cool. When it does the intermission and it cuts to the real world, it's a group of horror filmmakers who are making a movie in their whole goal is to do it in one simultaneous take. So you are watching then a movie that is not in one simultaneous take, but is going behind the scenes and showing how they pull. And there's just hijinks. There's ridiculous stuff that happens.
Yeah.
The beginning of it is scary, and then the second half is hysterical. And it's
almost a little bit like the inversion of Audition.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, because it starts off like, oh, and then I just touched my mic.
You're fine.
All right. It starts off like, and then it's just like gut-bustingly funny. And it's also just a really loving tribute to filmmaking.
Yeah.
Particularly low-budget horror filmmaking. It is one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen.
The film within the film is really compelling, and like, it's low rent. Like, it's obviously a low-budget horror movie, but it's impressive. It is in its own way an impressive piece of filmmaking, and then the film pulls the rug out from under you.
Yeah.
And I would say, even if you do have this film spoiled for you, even if you didn't skip forward a couple minutes there when we told you to, it's still worth seeing, because especially if you've had any experience whatsoever in indie filmmaking,
yes,
you'll be like, oh, that is recognizable. Oh, that's happened to me. Like, there's all these little beautiful in-jokes about
the drunk actor.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like, there's just so. It is such a good movie.
It's a great, like, nerd out filmmaker story, and it reminds me a little bit of the documentary An American Movie, which I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, we saw that with.
Did we see that?
That was the one that Hal recommended.
It's the one that Hal recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of An American Movie, which is a documentary about the making of a super low budget film.
Yeah.
And the weird personalities that went into making this low budget indie movie. You know, it's similar spirit to that, and really recognizable. And I just love that. I had a friend recommend it to me right before we went to Japan, and I was like, I have to watch this movie, and it's
very high up on my list now because it is quite a good film. One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah. My next one, there's no thematic overlap.
That's okay.
But When a Woman Ascends the Stairs by Mikio Naruse. It is a film from I think 1960, and it is about a hostess in Ginza, the entertainment district of Tokyo. She's in her 30s, and she is. It is a very sensitive political film. It's about the hardship that women in Japan had, especially in that era. And as a hostess, the protagonist of this film, she runs a restaurant and bar, mostly for office, middle management office men. They go there after work, and they go there to be entertained by a woman. So she constantly has to keep up appearances. She's having to make these men feel comfortable in her presence. Mm-hmm. She lives a lifestyle that she has to keep working hard in order to support, because she needs to have beautiful kimonos. She needs to be able to play music and have a beautiful setting for all these other people. And yet, for herself, she's not entirely happy. And she's constantly having to, just keep striving and striving and striving to get ahead. It is, in a sense, a skewering of the rise and grind culture that we experience today in America as people. And it really is, it's a beautiful, sensitive film that speaks to, even if you aren't a woman in Japan in 1960, it speaks to our experiences today. And in a film that hasn't really gotten its due. I think it is a masterpiece on the same level as Tokyo Story, on the same level as Rashomon or Ikiru. A beautiful film. And I also think the director, Mikio Naruse, who is kind of working in the same genre as Ozu, his films tend to be a little more serious, a little, there's still little bits of grace notes of humor in his films, but they tend to be more melodramatic. But I love them just the same, and he is not as well regarded, I think, because his films didn't make their way to America in the same way that Ozu's films did in the 1970s. So, the big American scholars didn't write about him as much. Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver, is a huge Ozu head. But he doesn't really delve into Mikio Naruse because his films weren't available in the 70s for him to write about. But I recommend the films of Mikio Naruse more broadly. They are available on the Criterion Channel. I was just about to ask, where is this one streaming? Because I'd like to see it. Yeah. Not very many of his films are in DVD either, sadly. Huh. But a lot of them are on the Criterion Channel, and I will boost this filmmaker because I think he's working at a similar register and a similar level of excellence. Other films of his that I love are, Sound of the Mountain, which is a really ahead of its time film that deals with body autonomy and abortion. And this is a film that came out in 1956. You were telling me about this film, I think, recently. It's a film that's very much ahead of its time, having come out in the 50s. And Flowing, which dealt with a law in Japan that basically undermined, an entire industry of sex workers. And Yearning, which dealt with a woman who had been widowed and is living with her husband's family and feeling like she's being pushed away. Really like beautiful films that deal with real issues, typically about women, and their various travails in Japanese society, which, guess what? It ain't just Japan.
Very true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Well, I suppose going with societal commentary there's a way to kind of move into that. I'm going to be a little nerdy for a second. Oh, first of all, something really cool in Tokyo is that we got to see the giant Godzilla head. That is...
Yes.
Now, it was blockaded off, but I still got to see him. And I wanted to mention Godzilla sometime on this because me and my friends are kind of nerds for monster movies. But recently I saw a movie called Shin Godzilla, which
I have not seen. I missed it.
Well, it is directed by Hideaki Anno, and so it is still kind of like the nostalgic, like rubber suit kind of movie. However, Godzilla evolves, and the whole... I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I also don't want to spoil this one, but it's so amusing because the focus on this one, it almost has a comedic element to it. It is a monster movie. It's, upsetting, but it is how the government is mismanaging this Godzilla situation and how basically society was how Godzilla was created. It does talk about like nuclear waste and how that kind of caused him to evolve even further. Again, I'm not going to, but it's like it's like the chaos of bureaucracy versus Godzilla.
Yeah.
And they are so freaking incompetent. It's serious, but it's also a hoot because it is a biting satire. And I'm not gonna spoil. America eventually comes into play, and they're much worse. And it is a very nice snapshot of what we possibly might look like to other cultures as well, which I adore. So it is a Godzilla movie, and Godzilla -1 was great. That was like very serious, but this is a satirical movie about men that uses a monster. And I had a blast. I went with Eris and Deej to see it in theaters, and it was very fun. Yeah. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Not going to spoil it, but just check out Shin Godzilla. It's goofy. The visual effects are very, very good. I wrote down who did the visual effects. Let me give him a shout out. Shinji Hijiki did the visual effects, and Godzilla. At first, he starts out looking kind of weird, and you're like, that's not Godzilla. And then you realize that they're doing this. Oh, pollution makes him evolve. And it's like, okay. So it's yeah. Check out Shin Godzilla.
I forget what I was doing that I didn't make it. It must have been like during a shoot for River City.
It was actually, I'll tell you exactly what it was. For some reason, Eris had off on a weekday.
Oh, you saw it.
Deej is always off on weekdays, and it was one of my weekdays, so it was on a Monday or a Tuesday. Okay. So we all went in the middle of the day in the afternoon to see a Godzilla movie, and it was.
Well, I was working.
You were working. That's what you were doing. So I can tell you why. But we'll have to watch it together. Yeah. I wanted to watch it in Japan, but anecdote. One of the things about Japan is, and this is fine, but we found it on a streaming platform, but they don't have English subtitles in Japan on streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right. It was. It's not available, or at least back when we were in Japan. It might be now, for all I know. But it wasn't on Netflix in America. But it was on Netflix in Japan.
Yes.
When we were in Japan. The downside is there was no English subtitles.
There's no English subtitles.
And while both of us learned like a smattering of Japanese. Mm-hmm. Not enough to actually watch a Japanese movie and understand everything that was going on.
Yeah, I could have because I had already seen it, but I wanted you to take away because there's a lot of fun dialogue in it too. So, anyway,
that's a movie that I haven't seen yet, but I want to.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, my last film, and I went kind of riffing off the previous one, When a Woman Ascends the Stairs. I wanted to give a shout out to a female director. In Japan, much like the rest of the world, much like America, it is really difficult for women to break into the film industry. So female directors in Japan, there are more of them working today, but it was a long slog. And there aren't that many that rose to positions of prominence. But one of the very few famous women directors in Japan is Kanuyo Tanaka. And she might be recognizable to the really big nerds out there because she was a famous actress. She was in a bunch of the landmark Japanese films from the 50s, like Ugetsu and Life of Oharu. And starting in the early 50s, she transitioned into directing. And I've only seen a couple of her movies, but I wanted to shout out one of them. And, that one is The Moon Has Risen. And it is similar to a couple of the other picks that I've pointed out. It is a family drama dealing with issues of intergenerational conflict. And interestingly, she was kind of friendly with Ozu. Ozu wrote the script, and many of Ozu's regulars, because it was for the same studio, make appearances in roles in this film. But it is different. It has a somewhat different style compared to the Ozu films. And offers kind of a different lens onto the same subject, and the lens of an actual woman who lived these dynamics and some of the the inherent misogyny in our culture writ large. And I'm eager to watch more of her movies. I believe she only directed like 6 or 7. And they're all on Criterion Channel now. So I will be watching more of them. But The Moon Has Risen is quite good. And it's interesting because there are so few female directors working in Japan during the golden era, the golden age of Japanese cinema in the 50s and 60s.
So, you mentioned that this is on Criterion. I have not seen this one. Wallace, off the podcast. No, but on the podcast. You're witnessing a moment of us having a couple moments. Can we please watch this movie?
Yes.
Yes. Maybe after dinner tonight?
Perhaps.
Okay.
Yes.
I really want to see it. It sounds fantastic. And I love the idea of Ozu writing a typical Ozu film that does focus on these female characters, but then having that story being directed by an actual woman.
Yeah.
That is so freaking cool.
I love that. I did a little bit of research when I watched the movie the first time. And they, he apparently was friendly with her, and he had this script in his back pocket, and it's not clear 100% how it fell into her lap, but it seemed like Ozu was actively supporting her and wanted her to direct. And so, bingo bango, here's a script, and she apparently made some changes to it, made it her own, and
she added a woman's voice to it.
And added a woman's voice to this. And so many of Ozu's films, they're not just about women, but they tend to have a lot of strong female characters in them already.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to see what a woman brings to a script that already had strong female characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. No, I'm dead serious. I really want to see this movie now. I know we are running short of time, but I want to. I don't know. Where are we?
We're an hour and a half in.
Oh, we're fine. Because I've only got one movie left too. But I wanted to take a moment here because this one didn't make my list, but I wanted to talk to you about it because it's kind of a Japanese film, but not really. An early movie from when I was a teenager. I'm talking about somebody who made not that many films. There is a Japanese visual effects artist who I adore, Screaming Mad George, who he's done effects in so many cool, horror movies. He worked on one of my favorite movies, Bride of Reanimator. He did the weird effects in Big Trouble in Little China. His directorial debut, and I think the only movie he has ever directed, is from 1991, and it is called The Guyver, and it is based off of a Japanese manga. And it is like if Power Rangers were a horror movie. But the cool thing is he teamed up with Brian Yuzna, who produced all the Reanimator movies, and he produced a bunch of... And it is like this 80s schlocky horror film, but if it were like a Monster of the Week show like Power Rangers. And it is like this interesting hybrid of like American 80s horror and Japanese like storytelling. And the basic premise is that there is a scientist who's working for this big corporation who develops this like superhero suit. And he is murdered by his, the heads of the corporation because they want access to his invention. But then a white guy, finds a suit and is like, oh, I'm gonna, basically he becomes the Guyver, while the scientist's daughter has basically teamed up with him. It's like fighting crime. But there are evil space monsters. David Gale from Reanimator, West, like the head guy, is the head of this corp. So there's a bunch of Brian Yuzna regulars in it. There is a crazy scientist who creates these things that turns people into monsters, played by Jeffrey Combs, who's funnily enough called Dr. East. Dumb. but like it is so interesting because it reminds me of like Super Sentai, but it just goes harder. It's so, and then of course Screaming Mad George being so good at the practical effects. The monsters look gorgeous and they're funny and they're scary. So it's a fun little schlocky movie, and his only film that he ever directed. So I wanted to shout out on that. But now I'll get to my actual movie. My top one on my list is actually a movie that I had never seen, and Wallace was like, I can't believe you've never seen this movie. And he showed it to me finally, I guess a couple years ago, and it has become, like, if I had a list of my top 25 favorite movies, it is solidly on that list. And that is, so the English title is House, but pronounced is as Hasu. And it's directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi. And this movie is cuckoo banana pants, and I adore it. It starts out with like these Japanese schoolgirls. One of them is all like, my father's getting married to a new woman, and I'm like sad. So like they go on this retreat to visit her aunt in the countryside, who may or may not be like haunted. I don't know. But it is just so like, there are so many haunted house movies where it's like, oh, it's a ghost and you're being haunted by a ghost. And this movie is like, well, what if you were just haunted by the actual house? What if the actual house was the thing that like came to life and was fucking with you all? And it's so funny. It is actually simultaneously so funny and also one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen. It is a beautifully made movie. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Hausu is like a rite of passage.
Yeah.
I've introduced several of my friends to Hausu. It is a film that if you haven't seen it, and at this point it's gotten more of a higher profile in America than it had like a decade or two ago. I first saw it in college. And then I like evangelized like for this movie, but it is a wild ride. And if you read about the backstory, so that it was
sorry, you can tell, but I love this about it.
Feel free to chime in, but it was inspired by the director's like 5 or 6 year old daughter.
Yes,
it was a dream that the daughter had, and the director like sat down with his daughter and was like. And pulled details from this dream and expanded on it to tell this story. And if you watch the movie, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
From a visual standpoint, from like a narrative standpoint, it feels like the work of like a 6-year-old and their imagination.
And she's credited as one of the screenwriters, which I think is
rightfully
hysterical, but wonderful.
Yeah.
I also love like the parts that he expanded on. He literally just asked her like, oh, what would be something that would really scare you? And I'm not going to I know it's like from 1977, but like there are things in this movie that are so wild, and when you watch it, you're like, oh yeah, that is something a child would be afraid of what would happen.
Yeah.
Like, and it is...
And if you think about it, like those things are elemental. Mm-hmm. The things that go bump in the night, you know, that as an adult, you know, those things are still scary.
Yeah.
You know, we talk ourselves down from it, and we think that we're past them, but we're not really.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's a primal horror at the very literal sense. Another thing that so just a quick anecdote. I knew about Houseu before you introduced it to me. I had just never seen it, and then you evangelized and just made it sound so much better. But like it does have this cult following. I have a friend who does tattoos, and one of the tattoos he did was of the cat. Yeah. And that cat is so like iconic now. Like,
it's on T-shirts everywhere. Yeah. I'm sure if you walk into Hot Topic today, you'll find a Houseu like T-shirt hanging up.
And it's so striking that it's the cover of the Criterion, the Criterion Blu-ray. It's the cat that's just... It's not even in the movie that long. I think it's maybe in the movie for 5 minutes, but it is one of the most visually striking things in the movie.
And this was the one where I was tempted to add it to my list for this.
Yeah.
But you had it covered, so I was like,
I'm sorry. Yeah, no,
and it gave me space to kind of get a little weird with some of my choices.
No, which I appreciate.
Weird is, you know, in the eye of the beholder.
And I appreciate it because you have such a deeper love, and not that I don't love Japanese film, but I'm still new to it. You have introduced me like Afterlife and like Cure, like a lot of these films. And there's introduced and
there's
Ozu,
so much too. Like we could talk for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we still wouldn't even scratch the surface. Like there's so many other directors that I love, like Kaneto Shindo, for example, another underrated director that you could... A lot of his movies are on the Criterion channel right now. Anyway, we could just keep going for 3 hours talking about this.
Yeah.
Alas, we have to get to Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, why don't we wrap this up? What are you thankful for?
What am I thankful for? Oh, don't put me on the spot. There's so many things. I'm thankful for you.
Well, yeah.
I'm thankful for mystery. And you know what? Tying it back to the beginning of this podcast, I am thankful for community in these times. So having a community, a filmmaking community with you, a community on stage, community with my family has found community through their church. I have friends, you know, in a church.
Well, and you have your community in your church.
In my church.
Which, you know, we don't get to see as often as we'd love, but we will see them this week.
Yeah, we've got our glistening. Yeah. And just friends, loved ones. Just it feels really nice to just have this warm hug of people around, and that we see each other regularly and can be there for one another. So not to be all serious, so I will say, and that's the big message of Emmet Otter. And also something that really resonates with what you were talking about earlier with Japanese culture, the idea that we all take care of one another, that it is our responsibility as human beings to be there for one another. So it's actually also a very Japanese concept that we're talking about. But yes, community. I'm done. Yeah. I'm done.
I mean, I agree. There's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know, and I know a lot of people in my orbit have kind of a fraught relationship with the holidays, and specifically with Thanksgiving. I know I do too. Like growing up in my crazy family, Thanksgiving was always kind of a fraught time because it was like we had some not so nice things happen over the Thanksgiving holiday. And yet, as an adult, I've gotten to surround myself with a beautiful community of people who become family. Like we just went for a walk the other morning with two really close friends who are family. And they're family in like a personal sense. They're part of our film family. They're part of my improv family. And I find that really a beautiful thing, the sense that I have all these communities that can overlap. And, we all support each other. We all work on each other's films, or we show up on stage together. We break bread together on the regular. Some of them come on this podcast on a frequent basis. And especially in times like these, which can be quite fraught and quite uncertain, it is the community that has your back. These support systems that are there for you in good times and in bad. They're the people who will be there for you when you need them. And I think the more we can do to kind of raise each other up and to advance a social contract based on empathy and mutual respect and love, the better off we'll all be. And I'm grateful for the community that I am part of.
Well spake, sir. Well spake.
So no matter where you are, we wish you love and community. Be good to each other.
And what's the thing you always end with?
Be kind to each other.
Be kind to each other. Yeah. Please.
Please. Please. Please. Please. And cut.